He saw a waitress being harassed by three men. He felt the need to teach them a lesson. He approached, quickly grabbed one of them by the arm and forced the troublemaker to apologize to Frankie. Faced with John's strength and firm attitude, all three men fearfully left the bar. The opening scene introduces John Brickner, a man recently released from prison after serving 4 years, a sentence shorter than the 7 years he was originally given for a murder he committed in the past. After his release, John is determined to make amends and build a new life. He moves to Seattle and starts working as a construction worker to settle down. One night, on his way to a bar, John comes across Frankie, a waitress, being harassed by three men. John felt the need to teach the three men a lesson. He approached them, quickly grabbed one of them by the arm, and forced the troublemaker to apologize to Frankie. Faced with John's strength and determination, all three men fearfully left the bar. Witnessing the event, the bar owner was impressed and immediately offered John a job as a security guard. John agreed and began living a double life, working as a construction worker during the day and as a security guard at the bar at night. The next day, John started his new job as a security guard at the bar. When two drunken patrons got into a fight, he tried to intervene and calm them down. However, not long after, they caused more trouble, forcing John to step in and restrain both of them, making them leave. The entire incident was witnessed by Reno Paul Saint, Frankie's boyfriend. Impressed by John's abilities, Reno suggested a different job opportunity and left his business card, telling John to contact him if he was interested. John politely declined Reno's offer because he was already busy with his two current jobs. One day, after finishing his work as a construction worker, John was unexpectedly approached by a woman named Veronica. It turned out that Veronica was the wife of the man John had killed in the past. Bor's also the one who had sent the petition that helped reduce his sentence and get him released early. However, these efforts were not free. Veronica demanded that John raise $250,000 to cover the cost of a heart transplant surgery to save her daughter's life. To make amends, John decided to help Veronica raise money for her daughter's surgery. When he got home, he checked all the money he had, but it was nowhere near the huge sum Veronica was asking for. Feeling cornered, John sought out Frankie for help. Frankie agreed and took him to meet Reno at a secret location. When they arrived, Reno led John into a crowded building. Inside was a lively arena, where the audience cheered and roared for the fighters. After hearing John mention the job, Reno revealed his intention. He wanted John to become a fighter for him. With each victory, they would earn large amounts of prize money from the bets. Despite being on parole, John firmly refused to participate in illegal fights. Despite Reno's pressure, he stood his ground and did not give in. The next day, John went to Veronica's house to apologize for not being able to raise the money she needed. Upon hearing this, Veronica reminded John of the promise he made while he was in prison. At that time, he had assured her that he was willing to do anything to atone for his past mistakes. Veronica's shouting caught the attention of her daughter, Sarah. The weak and sickly girl stepped out of her room to see what was happening. Chara in such a frail condition, John felt a deep sense of sorrow, and guilt overwhelmed him. In the end, he promised Veronica that he would do whatever it took to gather the funds needed for Sarah's treatment. The next morning, while John was working at the construction site, he was unexpectedly fired by his boss over a minor mistake. However, not long after, his boss suddenly suffered a heart attack and collapsed right in front of him. Fortunately, John quickly performed first aid, helping his boss survive the critical situation. That night, John decided to return to the arena to observe the situation. He saw Reno and Frankie watching an intense match. Unfortunately, Reno's fighter was seriously injured during the match and was immediately rushed to a nearby room for emergency care. After the examination, the doctor confirmed that the fighter was not in good enough health to continue competing in the upcoming second round. In light of this, John volunteered to take the fighter's place. However, before John's match could begin, it was interrupted by the arrival of Mr. Wolf, who came to collect a debt from Reno. Reno tried to calm him down, promising to pay the full amount after the match ended. When the match officially started, both John and
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough.
Despite being hit, John remained resilient and fought back. In the end, spectacular victory. In the locker room, Reno handed John the prize money from the win. However, John decided to share a portion of the money with the fighter he had replaced earlier. A few days later, after finishing his morning run, John was surprised when Reno and Frankie showed up to meet him. Reno suggested that John continue participating in the next fight, emphasizing that there was still a lot of money to be made. After some consideration, John agreed. Reno even invited John to live with him for convenience in training and fighting. In the next match, Reno and John met with Deacon, the referee overseeing the fight, at a restaurant to discuss the requirements for the upcoming battle. During the conversation, Reno admitted that he had gone bankrupt and could not afford to place a bet involving a large sum of money. Another issue was that John's parole status was still not fully settled. However, after a tense discussion, John managed to convince Deacon to allow him to participate in the fight. Soon after, Reno was seen pawning a precious ring that had been passed down to him by his father, a legendary former fighter. This ring became collateral for the purpose of the upcoming match. Later, Reno took John to meet a man named Nestor. However, when they arrived, Nestor ordered his men to kill Reno because he could not pay back his debt on time. Seeing this, John immediately intervened, stopping Nestor's men who were preparing to act. He boldly declared that he was ready to fight them, but with one condition: if he won, Nestor had to release Reno. If he lost, he would take full responsibility for paying off Reno's debt. Finally, the 10-minute battle with a $10,000 wager officially began. Immediately, John and Reno left the area. While on their way home, John received a call from Veronica. She informed him that her daughter had suddenly collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. John felt anxious when he saw Sarah, Veronica's daughter, weak and lying in a hospital bed. He was determined to do everything he could to help Sarah so that she could undergo surgery as soon as possible. After leaving the hospital, he accidentally overheard a conversation between Reno and Frankie in the living room. Frankie criticized Reno, accusing him of using John to pay off his debts. However, Reno firmly denied Frankie's accusations. According to Reno, John was a former convict and not as good as Frankie thought. Reno even accused Frankie of having feelings for John. Just then, John appeared after their conversation and walked straight into the room. At night, as John prepared for a new fight, Reno apologized for his previous remarks. Reputation grew more and more widespread, causing the courage of other fighters to slowly diminish. Many scheduled matches had to be cancelled because opponents were afraid of losing to John. However, Reno believed this was understandable and promised to find another fighter to face John. One day, when John went to the bar for a drink, he noticed two people watching him from a car. It turned out they were bodyguards of Veltz, a mob boss who had lent money to Reno. While Reno was gambling elsewhere, Veltz's men came to meet him, and Reno later begged for more time to repay his debt. Veltz's men gave Reno a week to pay off the debt, but if he couldn't manage it, Veltz's men would harm Frankie. One night, John participated in a match against a fighter from Mexico in a brutal battle. However, John performed. John, Reno, and Frankie went to a bar to celebrate the win. There, John asked Reno why he hadn't arranged his fights more strategically. Reno explained that as John's name became more famous, the betting amounts increased, forcing them to keep fighting to make enough money to cover expenses. Not long after, John received a call from Veronica, and they immediately went to her house. Upon arriving, John found Veronica unconscious and discovered a letter revealing the cancellation of Sarah's organ donation. It turned out that Veronica had disappointed her to the point of suicide. Without wasting time, John rushed Veronica to the hospital. While waiting at the hospital, John explained to Frankie why he had decided to participate in the fights. All he was doing was trying to save a child, the child whose father he had accidentally killed. Not long after John heard that Veronica had regained consciousness, he immediately went to visit her. There, John explained that he was trying to raise money to help her daughter undergo surgery. At the same time, Reno went to the pawn shop to redeem his father's ring. However, because Reno arrived too late, the ring had already been sold to someone else for a much higher price. Reno was furious, but there was nothing he could do to get the ring back. One night, John fought against Nestor's men again. After the event, Reno and Nestor arranged a match with a wager of $150,000 each. John asked Nestor to have his men surrender, but Nestor refused to give in and insisted that the fight must kill his opponent. John decided to quit. As a result, Nestor won. At the same time, Veltz's men came to find Reno and brutally beat him for his delayed repayment. The next day, John was once again followed by Veltz's men. They demanded that he come with them and took him to a luxurious house. There, John met Veltz, who turned out to be the father-in-law of John's boss at the construction site. In gratitude for John saving his son-in-law during a heart attack, Veltz promised to do anything John asked. John then made two requests, the first being that $150,000 be used for Sarah's heart surgery. John's second request was for Veltz to pay off all of Reno's debts. However, Veltz agreed to fulfill only one of the two requests, and the final decision was left up to John. John chose to clear Reno's debts. After the meeting with Veltz, John decided to say goodbye to Reno and Frankie, as he wanted to leave Reno's house. Reno thanked John for helping him escape the burden of his debts. Soon after, Reno received a call informing him that someone had placed a bet for John to fight against the reigning champion, Sharp. That night, John arrived at the arena to face Sharp, a formidable and difficult opponent. As the match began, Veronica was rushing down the hospital hallway when she discovered that Sarah's surgery fees had been paid. John also arrived at the hospital to encourage Veronica, but just deeply grateful for his help. Later, Reno and Frankie showed up, and John returned the rings he had bought from the pawn shop. Reno thanked John for his support throughout the ordeal.